Well, welcome back to Conversations. Anthony, here we are at episode 6.
Yeah, we've done 5 of them.
5, can you even believe it?
It feels good.
It
I'm
does.
enjoying myself.
Good, I am too.
Yeah.
Learning some stuff, practicing.
Yeah.
Practicing.
Practicing the practices.
There we go. That's what we want. So today we are talking about fasting.
Fasting.
Yes.
You know what I think of when I think of fasting?
Ooh, do tell.
It just makes me hungry.
That was kind of like an old man joke, but
Yeah.
we'll roll with
And
it.
You kind of laughed like it was an old man joke. It was courtesy.
It was a courtesy
Yeah, that's
laugh.
okay.
You're
I'll take
welcome.
it.
You are welcome for that. So yes, we're talking about fasting.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk a little bit about fasting before we let them dig into their conversation here.
Yeah. One of those things I think is neglected, but we all know about it.
Right.
It's like probably the most talked about spiritual practice, maybe beyond prayer and scripture reading. But a lot of us probably don't do it a lot.
I would agree with that for sure. Yes, it feels like it is one of the most well-known yet one of the most neglected spiritual practices, like you mentioned. So I'm sure lots of people have a lot of thoughts about fasting, maybe
sure they
some
do.
experiences. So why don't you all take a few minutes and talk around in your groups and with your people, and we'll see you back here in just a bit. Well, hopefully you've had some time to discuss fasting. And so, Anthony, let's just dig in. We like to define, kind of just set the pace here and the foundation for our conversation.
Yeah.
So we are defining fasting as the intentional giving up of food to deepen your dependence on God.
Yeah. Yeah. Remember, we talk about these practices, and it's a way to experience Jesus, a way to experience the Lord deeper. And this is, again, one of those things. And here's our heart shift. It's from control to surrender.
Ooh, that word surrender.
That word surrender. And I think we've talked about that in previous practices.
I think we have too.
This one in particular is a lot about just letting go.
Yes.
It's a very hard thing to do.
It is a very hard thing to do. And I think it's important to note that when we're talking about fasting here, too, we said food because especially as we're, in the season of Lent and
As we're recording, this is Ash Wednesday. Did you realize that?
Oh, it sure is.
Yeah. So
I
people
did
are
actually.
starting their Lent.
Giving up something for
Yeah.
Lent. But when we're talking about fasting here, we're talking specifically about food because people do give up lots of things. We even talked about that, I think, with simplicity maybe and Sabbath and things like that. But here for our purposes with fasting, we are talking about giving up food for a specific amount of time to deepen our dependence on God.
Yep. So when we think of fasting, we can look at the book of Esther. And Esther becomes a queen, right?
Yes.
And she is Jewish, and she hasn't let the king know this.
Correct.
But her sort of cousin, guardian of hers, Mordecai, he is at the king's gate, right? And he's working for the king. Well, the high-ranking official Haman, he kind of finds out that Mordecai is Jewish himself, right? And Mordecai decides not to bow down to Haman. And Haman does not like this at all. So what he does, he gets the king to issue a decree that they will destroy all the Jewish people living in that place. So now Mordecai says, "Okay, Esther, you're in this position. Can you now go to the king?" Now this is a big deal because if she does this, she knows she could just be killed right on the spot.
Right, and true that they weren't allowed, she wasn't allowed to approach the king.
She could not approach the king.
Unless he had called for her.
Exactly. So
he had not.
Yeah, so she goes to him. But before that, Mordecai is trying to get her to sort of understand the importance of this. Our people are going to be destroyed. You're the only one that can do this. And in verse 14, he says, in chapter 4, he says, "Who knows whether you have come to the kingdom for such a time as this?" Now, how many times in your life have you had one of those moments?
Oh, yeah. I mean, definitely. I can recall very specific times. And I think that this is one of probably the most well-known verses, definitely from the book of Esther, and maybe from the Old Testament. In general, people always, refer to for such a time as this.
Yeah, and we all sort of can think about moments in our lives where we just know God has placed us for such a time as this. And so here's Esther's response to Mordecai. She says this: "Go gather together all the Jews who are in Susa and fast for me. Do not eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. I and my attendants will fast as you do. When this is done, I will go to the king, even though it is against the law. And if I perish, I perish."
Wow.
So the Jews fast. Yes, the Jews fast. Esther then commits to act through this fasting. She's going to fast as well. And then she's just going to trust God with the outcome.
I mean, this is our heart shift right here, right?
Yeah.
This is going from control to complete surrender. She's like, this is what I'm going to do. And whatever the Lord has, that's what I'm going to go with.
And put yourself in her place. I mean, truly, she probably believes I'm going to die by doing this. But surrender it all to the Lord.
Exactly.
God, you control the outcomes. It's not me. Again, these spiritual practices aren't about outcomes. We don't do things to gain anything other than experience and align ourselves with God's heart, right?
Right.
So fasting in this moment for Esther is a response to crisis, first of all, right? So the Jewish people are going to be destroyed, so it's a response to crisis. This is not just a ritual sort of thing for Esther. This is a response. So you may be going through things in your life, reaching a pivotal decision that you got to make in your life. Maybe you and your spouse are making a decision, or something really terrible has happened in your life, and you have to walk through this journey. These are important times to say, you know what, I need to just surrender this moment to the Lord, and I'm going to just stop eating so that I can center myself with Him. And then fasting precedes action. So I think that's interesting to me.
Okay. Dig into that.
Yeah, so Esther isn't just surrendering. She knows that she's also going to have to go and do something. So she's fasting, knowing that I'm going to have to then take action. We all have to take action in our lives. It's not just like holding our hands up and, God just take care of it. We actually have to go and do the hard things, right? And then the other interesting part is that this is a corporate thing. It's not private. Now, you can fast privately. There's nothing wrong with that. But there's a lot of power in fasting together as a church, as a family, with your spouse. It's just really important to do that fasting corporately as well.
So good.
So then Jesus talks about fasting. He says in Matthew 6, verse 16 through 18, he says, "When you fast, do not look somber as the hypocrites do, for they disfigure their faces to show others they are fasting. Truly, I tell you, they have received their reward in full. But when you fast, put oil on your head and wash your face, so that it will not be obvious to others that you are fasting, but only to your Father who is unseen. And your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you." Now, we could talk a lot about that whole passage, but I think the focus there, he says it twice, when you fast.
Right.
When you fast,
so
not
he's
if.
assuming that fasting is a part of life.
Exactly. And Jesus not only taught this, he did this, right? I mean, he fasted 40 days and nights before he even began his ministry. So this shows your humble dependence on God, right? We talked about that. It's also creates a spiritual clarity. And I think we tend to disconnect our spiritual life from our physical life.
Okay. I would agree with that.
And science, if you look at science, will actually tell you what happens, and I'm not going to get into the details, but tells you what happens to your mind and your brain when you go without food for a long time. Actually, your mind becomes more clear. You can think more clearly. Science tells us this. And so God has made us this way. It heightens our awareness. Yeah. So we're more aware of God. It's an opportunity for us to actually become more aligned with his heart. So it gives us spiritual clarity as well.
Yeah, and just that attentive posture, like
exactly
attentive to the Lord and what he's speaking to us, what he has for us.
Yep.
So good.
And then, of course, again, this is creating a posture of surrender for us. If I perish, I perish. Another way to say it, your will be done, Lord.
Right.
Like, it's not my will, it's yours, right? So we could practice it. How do we practice it?
Yeah, so because this is obviously something that we're supposed to do. It's a spiritual practice. And like you just said, Jesus said when we fast. So when we're talking about just the nitty gritty and getting down to how does this actually look in our everyday lives, it may not be a part of like your regular rhythm of life. Some people do have fasting as a part of their regular rhythm of life, and maybe you aren't there yet. Maybe you haven't done that yet. Maybe this is a season where that, is just not a part of your rhythm of life, but it should be done periodically at least. And it's intentional. And again, a way to deepen our reliance on God here. We're not looking for an outcome. We're not, if I do this, then this will happen kind of a thing, but just a part of the spiritual practice. And so just listen for a nudging from the Lord, because sometimes he just gives us that nudge, and we need to listen to it. And then decide on a period of time. How long are you going to go? I know for a lot of people, they start when they wake up and they go till sundown, right? So just for the day. So pick your period of time and then spend intentional time in prayer and scripture reading. It's not just a day to not eat, right? So you are doing something alongside the fasting.
And I think where Jesus talks about, don't disfigure your face. It's not meant just for you to suffer. Like it's not just a suffering, right? It's for actual intentional prayer and fasting. So that's why we put those two things together, usually prayer and fasting, right?
Exactly. And like when we talked about aligning ourselves and having that attentive posture. So when you are praying and when you are reading scripture, just that heightened awareness of what the Lord is speaking to you.
Yep. So we want to give you guys a chance to talk about fasting, some of the things that we talked about, but also here's some questions for you to consider with your groups. Number one, what dangers might arise if fasting becomes about comparison or spiritual performance? We just talked about that with what Jesus said in Matthew. Secondly, why is it powerful to fast together as a church or a family? Talk about what corporate fasting looks like and maybe some experiences that you've had fasting with others and the power behind that. And then thirdly, what might it look like for you to fast periodically, again, not out of obligation, but out of dependence on the Lord? So take some time around your groups to talk about this.